What if I told you that the secret to building wealth in real estate has been hiding in plain sight, and it literally involves letting strangers pay your mortgage? House hacking, the strategy of buying a property, living in part of it, and renting out the rest, has quietly minted more everyday millionaires than almost any other entry point in real estate investing. We're not talking about some obscure hedge fund strategy or a $20,000 coaching program. We're talking about buying a duplex, moving into one side, and watching your neighbor's rent check cover your entire housing payment. The audacity of it almost feels illegal, and yet here we are, perfectly within the bounds of the law and the tax code. Now, let's unpack why this works so well. Because the math isn't magic, it's just arbitrage hiding inside a boring residential mortgage. When you own or occupy a property, lenders reward you with the lowest interest rates available, sometimes 3 to 4% lower than what an investor buying a pure rental would receive, and that spread is where your wealth quietly compounds. Think of it like being handed the same puzzle as everyone else, except someone secretly gave you the corner pieces already assembled. The behavioral edge is just as powerful as the financial one, because when you live on site, you make better decisions, respond faster, and naturally protect the asset in ways a distant landlord never would. There was a moment, not long ago, when social media made house hacking sound like a guaranteed rocket ship. Every influencer was posting their "I retired at 29" story from a 4-unit in Cleveland. But rising interest rates, stubborn home prices, and tighter rental markets have cooled that energy, leaving a lot of would-be hackers paralyzed at the starting line, wondering if the window has closed. Here's the psychological trap though. When the hype fades, so does the discipline, and people confuse a harder environment with a broken strategy. The strategy didn't break. The expectation of effortlessness did, and those are two very different problems. Historically, real estate has rewarded patience over perfection in almost every cycle since the post-World War II housing boom. Even through the savings and loan crisis of the 1980s, the dot-com collapse, and the 2008 meltdown, people who held residential income properties with reasonable leverage came out the other side with real wealth intact. And yes, every cycle feels unique. The rates feel uniquely cruel, the prices uniquely unreasonable, the timing uniquely terrible, but the underlying human need for shelter has never once taken a vacation. What changes is the entry math. What doesn't change is the long game. Here's where people get it wrong. They think house hacking is only viable when rates are low and deals are obvious. But that's like saying you'll only exercise when the weather is perfect. The real opportunity in a high-rate environment is that competition thins, sellers negotiate, and the disciplined buyer with an owner-occupant loan still has access to financing that investors can only dream about. Another misconception worth torching. People assume you need a pristine duplex in a hot market to make this work, but house hackers have made it work with spare bedrooms, basement apartments, accessory dwelling units, and even short-term rentals in markets nobody's writing podcasts about. The asset class is more flexible than the Instagram highlight reel suggests, which means your opportunity is wider than your fear. So what do the historical lessons actually tell us to do? Buy the most units your owner-occupant loan allows, typically up to 4 live in one unit. Rent the others, and treat the income as a margin of safety rather than a lifestyle upgrade. Keep your position size rational. Don't stretch to a property that only works if every unit is rented and the water heater never breaks, because it will break spectacularly at the worst possible moment. The process matters more than the prediction. No one can time the market, but everyone can underwrite a deal conservatively, build a cash reserve of at least 3 to 6 months of expenses, and commit to holding through a full cycle. Unemotional strategy beats passionate conviction every single time in this game. And house hacking is the perfect training ground for that discipline, because you're living inside your own investment. Philosophically, this strategy forces a kind of skin in the game humility that most investors never develop. You can't ignore a leaking roof when you're the one sleeping above it. That proximity to the asset, awkward as it sometimes feels when you're collecting rent from the person who can hear your television, is precisely what sharpens your judgment for everything that comes after. And honestly, we can be comfortable with almost any outcome here. If the market rises, your equity compounds. If it softens, your tenant subsidized mortgage keeps your carrying cost lower than your renting peers. And if you decide to move, you now own a cash flowing rental property with a favorable cost basis. The only scenario where this doesn't work is the one where you never start, which is also the most common scenario. Whether you're ready to find your first house hack, need contractors to renovate a unit, or want to connect with lenders who understand owner-occupant investment loans, check out our links in the description below and let's get you started.